Hi there. I was born in Zimbabwe, and I now live in South Africa. And Africa is a wonderful place if you're an entrepreneur, because there are so many problems and so many opportunities to solve those problems. And one of the biggest problems in Africa right now is that demand for energy is outstripping the supply of available energy. And so utilities across Africa are implementing all sorts of measures to increase efficiencies. But one of the biggest problems that utilities have is actually recovering the costs of electricity. It's quite often that people will consume, the customers will consume energy, but then won't actually go and pay for that energy. So what we have seen over the last few years is this massive drive to replace the post-paid meter model with prepaid meters. So that introduces, though, another problem, because 80% of Africans are unbanked and live almost entirely in a cash economy. So what they have to do now is they have to go and purchase this electricity inconveniently, and also cash vending increases the costs of the electricity up to 20%. That's the commission that is charged. So what we see in Africa is that Africans are increasingly looking towards Bitcoin as a hedge against devaluing currencies, as a superior remittance technology, because obviously we know that the remittance corridors within Africa are incredibly expensive. Again, you can pay up to 20% just to move some money from South Africa to Zimbabwe. So Bitcoin is actually becoming a force, as people are discovering it. You're going to see, and we see it already happening, the growth is becoming enormous. So being involved in this space for so many years, trying to find solutions to provide electricity to unbanked Africans, to me it was just a no-brainer to think that Bitcoin could be that solution. Because now all you need is a mobile device, and mobile devices are everywhere. You don't need a bank account if you want to transact with Bitcoin. Africans want to use it already. So what we did was we then developed a platform where we would link our smart meters, conventional smart meters, to a Bitcoin system. And what would happen is you would be able to send Bitcoin, or any of the top cryptocurrencies, to our platform. It would calculate the exchange rate and calculate the tariff, and then would remotely load those prepaid meters with electricity. So now, when you have something like this, then suddenly now all these use cases, all these opportunities come up. For example, you don't need to be in the country or even nearby your meter to be able to purchase that electricity. You can be anywhere in the world. So the use cases are, let's say you're a student studying abroad, and you run out of electricity, and you phone your mom and say, can you please send me some money, I need to pay my bill. Then there's obviously the remittance cost, and there's time delays. Well, now the mom can just go and top up that meter with Bitcoin. And there's many other use cases. UNICEF has appreciated this solution, because when it comes to grant funding, there's this leakage that happens. A grant will be paid, but then there's administration costs. It kind of gets a bit lost, a lot of corruption, money gets lost. Here we have the ability to now make a payment directly to that meter. The payment is publicly auditable on the Bitcoin blockchain, and the entire cost of that transaction, given a marginal mining cost, goes to that meter. And then another use case is, let's say you now are a foreign donor, and you want to now support, let's say, a needy African school. Then what you can do now is, typically with donor payments, you have to pay some sort of organization. So you hand over your money to that organization, which opaquely distributes the money. Again, fees are incurred and costs, and it's all opaque. But now, with this type of system, you can now go and directly fund the cause that you believe in. So in a conversation with Grid Singularity CEO Ed Hesse, he prompted me and he said, Lauren, why don't you just go and do that? So I want to now tell you a story about two schools. The one is Emeweni Primary School, which is down the road from the place where Nelson Mandela grew up as a boy. And the other school is this one. If you recognize it, this is MIT in Boston. And let me now give you tell you this little story. So Emeweni, all public schools in South Africa have a small budget. What they have to do is they get that budget, and then they have to pay costs. So they will go and pay for amenities or resources or maintenance costs and all that sort of thing, pay for the teachers. But very often often that budget isn't sufficient. And so what happens is that the school administration has to arbitrage. They have to say, all right, well, this month we're not going to pay for to cut the grass. And what we did was, and then sometimes they don't pay for energy. In fact, schools are stopping to pay for energy. So we installed a conventional prepaid meter there. And Ed was now presenting at MIT. And so what we did was we decided to actually do a live demo from the MIT conference. So what I did was I took my laptop there. It was in the middle of the night where I was in South Africa. It was early in the evening. And Ed was at the conference, and he said to everybody, I'm now going to send electricity directly to the school. So what I did was I had to Skype in, and we zeroed the meters as well, and all the teachers were all excited, and they actually come in their pajamas. Parents were there as well, and Ed was now going to demonstrate a payment. And what he did was right there in the conference, he sent a Bitcoin to the meter, which was about 5,500 kilowatts of energy. It took about 30 seconds to arrive. It was a little bit of a nail-biting thing, but it did arrive, and suddenly the lights went on, and it was an incredible experience. People, suddenly the teachers were visible to the conference, and they were all going crazy. But this demonstrated the power of this, where you can now, again, make payments using Bitcoin. And you'll notice that this is not a blockchain solution. This is a Bitcoin solution. And I do think that a lot of the emphasis around blockchain has, in a sad sort of way, distracted us from the actual real power that I think, and the real revolution here, which is this decentralized, non-geographically located payment system, which can travel the world, it can reach the world in all the nooks and crannies. So an incredible, powerful solution. But now what we've done as well is we decided to experiment with smart contracts, because if you have a smart contract, you can create a very simple smart contract, which essentially is just a little bit of business logic. What we did was we then coded up in that contract a tariff and an exchange rate. And now what you can do is you can have the system much more decentralized. You don't have to have somebody who's maintaining the system. Now this opens up a whole lot of new opportunities as well. And I'll give you a use case. One of the things we're prototyping is shared services. So let's, and the best way to explain a shared service is to give you this example. We find in Africa, and I'm sure it's around the world, where energy is delivered very inefficiently. Sometimes if you imagine a street, maybe there's people on the street who don't want that street lit up, and now you've got all this energy going into the street. Well, now you can pay on demand microtransactions using a cryptocurrency, and you can only need to pay for what you actually want. And if there are areas that are being fed energy, well, now they don't need to be fed, and you can really create a lot of efficiencies. Another thing is perhaps if you're in a public space and you want to go and charge your iPhone or your laptop or something like that, what you can do is you can now go and pay, do a microtransaction, pay on demand for that energy. So I think what's going to happen with this particular type of technology, these microtransactions, it's going to suddenly make a lot more of the services, a lot of the energy that is delivered a lot more efficient. You can create a lot of efficiencies and really diminish the amount of energy that is required to be supplied. So we're very excited about this as well. This is now a Bitcoin QR code. If any of you have Bitcoin over here, what we have decided to do is create a crowdfunding platform where we will be able to list needy African schools. And you can go to the website, like a Kickstarter, and it'll tell you, this is the amount of energy that's required for this school for this month. And you're welcome to go and top up the meter with your Bitcoin. If you would like to contribute to this project, we'd like to get it off the ground. Now, there's opportunities for startups in Africa, but obviously very little funding. So I would hopefully appeal to you if any of you would like to support this project for a good cause. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Lauren. That was fascinating. So, in your mind, what's the future product? Is it kind of a fully integrated solution that you bring to a school that kind of links it to that network?
Well, this crowdfunding project is just a crowdfunding project. It's not a business. It's a social project that's close to my heart, and I'd like to, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who would like to support little school kids. I know this could be worked in hospitals. But what there is a bit of a chicken and an egg problem now, where Bitcoin is great, but it's very difficult to use. It's difficult to acquire if you don't have access to an online exchange. So we have a whole set of products that we're delivering for an African market. So Bitcoin prepaid cards that you can go and purchase at a retailer for cash and then scan and load Bitcoin onto your app. We also want to make sure that people, once they have Bitcoin, they can actually go and spend Bitcoin. So we have a retail product as well. But there's a whole suite of products. We think that Bitcoin is going to transform the world. It's going to help Africans especially, and we're very excited about the potential of Bitcoin. That's not to say blockchain isn't interesting, of course, but Bitcoin is here today and it works today, and this is a real thing that actually happens. By the way, if Klaus Wattendorp is here, I was the guy who voted and said that I have a product that is ready to be taken to market.
Thank you, Lorian.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.